welcome back to the Wellness Check. Today I wanted to talk to you about what I use in my practice as a guideline for the 3 steps to finding food freedom when it comes to the treatment of an eating disorder. And what's really great is that you can use these 3 steps along with your therapist, along with your treatment team, and you can use it also for those who are experiencing symptoms of anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder, or if we're just kind of talking about disordered eating, body dysmorphia, things like that. So I will say that these are steps that I'm talking to you about today that are purely educational, and that if you are to do these 3 steps, I very much encourage you to do it with a trained professional, a therapist or counselor that specializes in the treatment of eating disorders, and even better yet, a treatment team, which includes your eating disorders therapist, a dietitian who specializes in the treatment of eating disorders, maybe a psychiatrist for medication management, and things like that. So I'm going to break it down for the 3 steps. And like I said, you can pretty much use this for any type of eating disorder. We just kind of navigate around it and make it individualized for each and every person. I'm hoping this video will be helpful for those who are wondering what it would be like to come to therapy. Maybe they've never been before, but they're wondering if there's something happening with their relationship with food, but might be a little anxious to enter the therapy world and start working on that. So the first step is what I call mechanized eating. Okay, so as you can kind of tell from the wording itself, this is kind of getting the client back onto track with consistent food intake. So depending on the individual, depending on where they are in their relationship with food, this could look a little bit different, but generally speaking, it would be the individual coming in and we're talking about what their daily food intake looks like. What are they getting in on a typical day? What would they consider a good day or a bad day of eating? And again, those answers will vary from person to person. But it is important to get them on a mechanized eating schedule where we are learning how to develop a meal plan to get consistent food intake. Maybe something every 2 to 3 hours, maybe something every 3 to 4 hours. A big piece of my treatment that I do with my clients is nutritional therapy. I am not a registered dietitian, but I do have a lot of experience with it. And so we do a lot of metabolism education, meal support, and that's really where the dietitian shines as well, and why it's so important to kind of see where this person's coming from, what their relationship currently is, and how to bridge those gaps into being able to eat something every 3 to 4 hours. We talk a lot about macronutrients, which is proteins, fats, and carbs, and what actually makes a real meal and a real snack versus maybe what they are participating in currently. A meal being all 3 macronutrients, a snack being at least 2 macronutrients. So maybe a fat and a carb, or a carbohydrate and a protein. We're learning how to pair those things together. And depending on where the person is with their food intake, this can be kind of scary, but what I hear a lot is that this is actually very comforting, because they might have a lot of anxiety around food, not knowing what to pick, how much to eat, not being able to really tie into their hunger and fullness cues at all. So getting to mechanized eating, where we are developing a mutual meal plan that they feel like they can start out with, where they're getting food every so often throughout the day, and we know how to structure that. Not only is it going to help their body begin to predict more safely that they will be nourished, but it can also help to kickstart the metabolism, help to reset some of the chemicals that happen in our bodies that we produce when we're hungry, when we're full, ghrelin and leptin. It helps to sort some of that stuff out. So once somebody has come in and we are really working on mechanized eating and the anxiety around it is falling really low, they're not anxious about it, it's starting to feel more like a habit, and maybe even developing confidence behind it, that's when we go into the next step. Step 2 is intuitive eating. So many of you may have heard of that before. There's a really good workbook out there called Intuitive Eating by Linda Bacon. Really good. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. But this is the bridge between mechanized eating. I am going to be eating something every 3 to 4 hours, towards I'm going to learn to be able to listen to my body's cues. I'm going to be able to dip into my body, see what it's asking for, and to non-judgmentally and compassionately give my body what it needs. I know what the rules are, I know what the structure is around food, what I should be doing, but now I get to listen to what my body is saying. So often when we're talking about disordered eating or eating disorders, we're very cerebral. It's our brain telling our body what it needs, right? Maybe it's our brain saying, you don't need sugar or you don't need bread. Intuitive eating is the exact opposite. It encompasses all foods are good foods. It encompasses, instead of my brain telling my body what it needs, it's really learning how to dip into the body, begin to lean into those hunger and fullness cues, expand variety with what you are taking in, adding more foods that maybe you haven't had in a while, challenging yourself with things, and leaning into the intuitiveness. So it's a beautiful space between I'm going to eat every 3 to 4 hours towards I'm going to really kind of see what my body's asking for. And like I said, non-judgmentally begin that relationship with food and body. So this is also imperative that you're working with your therapist during this step, because it is a big one. It goes from the comfort of rigidity and predictability over into, okay, I'm going to listen to my body, and I haven't done this maybe ever in my life or in years and years and years. So work with your therapist, work with your dietitian. That's where the extra support comes from. Now, the third step is a magical step. The third step is what I consider the advanced intuitive eating. Okay, so we're getting used to step 2. Okay, I'm going out to restaurants with my friends a little easier. I can order menu items without changing or modifying it. I'm beginning to add a lot of variety in, and it's feeling less anxiety provoking. Step 3 is just piggybacking off of that. So through the course of disordered eating treatment, eating disorder treatment, we learn a lot about the connections between mood and food, right? And this is what I tell people all the time. Imagine mood and food being best friends. They really like to hang out with one another. You'll see them hanging out, right? But then you kind of notice, like you're watching from afar, and these mood and food are getting into trouble. They're getting into trouble together, and you're just watching it happen, and you're saying to yourself, man, mood and food really shouldn't be friends. They're not good for one another. Look at what's happening. So we really learn a lot in the first step and the second step, especially the second step, how to disconnect mood and food, which is an extremely important step when we're talking about recovery or improving relationship with food and body. So step 1 and 2, we're really working through the ebb and flow of emotions that come into our life every single day, right? Emotions are going like this, life is up and down. But in the background, food is just this very constant thing that no matter if we're happy, if we're sad, if we're joyful, if we're scared, food is running pretty consistently in the background. It is not riding the same wave as emotions. That's how we know someone is ready for step 3, this advanced intuitive eating step, is when they can really begin to regulate their emotions without attaching it to food. They're able to nourish their body, keep consistency there, whether they're having a good day or a bad day. Now we can talk about step 3, and it kind of overlaps in a way, and I'm going to show you how. So far, we've been learning how to detach mood and food, right? Keep food consistent and constant. Let's really work on managing and identifying our emotions and processing them in healthy ways. Third step, okay, hang with me. Third step says, all right, now that you've detached them, now that they have gotten space from one another, mood and food, let's learn how to realistically and in a healthy way begin to bring them back together in a very different way than when that client first came in. So once these friends have some distance and they're learning how to operate independently, the advanced stage is really here to teach us food is good. I mean, we are designed to enjoy food. Food can be comforting. Food surrounds fellowship, it surrounds social gatherings and celebrations, it's everywhere. And we have favorite foods that we just really love. So, step three says, how can we bring these two back together in a new way where we can begin to incorporate happy, healthy emotions with certain foods without the disorder, without the anxiety, without the body dysmorphia or body image insecurities? Once you get that feeling, maybe again for the first time in your entire life or the first time in years, you will feel that food freedom. And it's an amazing feeling. But it's very important that you work those steps. You first start with the mechanized eating, then you get into intuitive eating. You bridge over into that. Get comfortable there, get confident there, and then learn full circle how to bring that back and get into the enjoyment and the comfort of food in a very different way. Those are the 3 steps. Now, with that said, that can take a long time, right? Depending on the trauma, depending on the circumstances or the stressors that are behind the eating disorder. We're working on those in therapy simultaneously with all of the food stuff. So we can go from step 1 to step 2, from step 2 to step 3, from 3 to 2. Maybe a big life event came up and we start to lean on our old coping mechanisms of eating disorder, or restriction or binging or whatever it is. Maybe we're really insecure about our body and it's causing a lot of anxiety around food. This is when your therapist, your dietitian will work with you to say, okay, let's take a step back. This is fine. Life came in. We have a curveball. How can we support you in this? And now, because you've mastered all 3 of these steps, you can say, you know what? I have too much going on. I cannot handle intuitive eating right now. I need to go back to mechanized. And that's what we do. We say, okay, listen, you've gotten through step 3. You were doing great. You are doing great. Life happened. We're leaning on old coping skills. Let's get back to the regimented mechanic eating, right? Just for a couple days, just for a couple weeks until you can get your feet back on the ground with whatever life has put in front of you. And there it is. It's familiar, it's structured, it's predictable, and there can be a lot of comfort and safety there where elsewhere in your life you are not feeling predictability or safety. Come back to mechanized eating. Or maybe you're in step 3 and you're feeling confident, and all of a sudden something happens and you're feeling anxiety about an upcoming wedding that you have to go to. Or your friend takes you out to this restaurant that you looked at the menu beforehand on your phone and you can't find anything that feels comfortable enough to eat. Okay, go back to step 2. Let's just talk about intuition. Let's talk about the menu items that you could be interested in, how you might be able to navigate that as you're ordering so that you can maintain happiness and groundedness, stay present while you're there with your friends, and not be so up in your mind worried about food that you're miserable. So I just want to kind of conceptualize this for you, that this is what it could look like with your therapist, with your treatment team, when we're going through the treatment of an eating disorder, disordered eating, or body image issues. There is a step to each process that we're doing. There is a rhyme and reason to why we do it this way, and it's to help maintain a sense of control within your environment, that you're not just going to step into a therapist's office and we're just going to drill you with food and eating and being overwhelmed. It's not that way at all. It's really self-paced and it's guided by you and what you are ready for. So I hope this helps. If you are someone that is struggling with relationship with food, relationship with body in any way, if there's anxiety, I encourage you to reach out. Reach out to a trained professional who specializes in relationship with food and body. Maybe if you're not ready for the therapy work, the emotion stuff, the trauma stuff, start with a dietitian who specializes in the treatment of eating disorders. That's very important, right? We got to really look for the niche professionals here because they're the ones that really get it and can help you in the way that will be most beneficial to you in the short and long run. So again, I hope this helps. And if you or someone you know is struggling, it might be time to get them into a counselor or into a dietitian to get the ball rolling and see how they can help. There's no reason whatsoever that anybody has to do this alone, navigate it alone, figure it out by themselves. No reason whatsoever. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for checking in with your wellness. I'll see you soon.